So I understand my paper as complementary to the previous papers we've heard already, and complementary as in regard to the place, because we switched to Dubai now, yeah, away from Central Asia, and complementary also in regard to the term that we came up with in the morning, what we try to understand as foreign Islam or foreign religion, and I hope that my paper helps to deconstruct or to interrogate this term. So my paper is part of a larger anthropological book project that deals with the religious reform projects of Tajik Muslims who went abroad to study Islam in foreign Muslim countries. During or after their studies abroad, many of them became attracted by the Dubai boom that accumulated in the late 90s and early 2000s, and they started to work in the Arab Emirates. Some of them became traders, businessmen or shop owners. Others established a cross-border trade business that connects their educational networks in the Gulf region, the wider Middle East, with those social networks existing in Russia's Tajik migrant communities, or with their kins at their Central Asian home. Students traveling to foreign Muslim countries with the purpose of gaining Islamic knowledge underwent a significant popularization with the end of the Soviet Union, and became part or can be subsumed under so-called post-Soviet Muslim revivalism. Starting in the early 1990s with the civil war, when a huge number of Tajiks fled to Afghanistan, as well as with the increase of the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca, and up to the more recent government's Call Back campaign in the Tajik media in 2011, several thousand young Tajiks had been traveled abroad in their search for a true or authentic Islamic knowledge. Most of the students I met during my fieldwork were registered in Al-Azhar or in the International Islamic University in Islamabad. As this map obviously shows, the student travelers I met dispersed in many different parts of the Muslim world. They were driven by very different motivations, aspirations and dreams. Some of them returned home, but for many their stay abroad and the networks they established or integrated into opened up new ways and means for travel to further destinations driven by spiritual pursuits or economic goals. So wherever they went and whatever they planned, the educational trajectories of the student travelers at some point in their mobile biographies crisscrossed professional careers or work trajectories. Attracted by the Dubai boom and the success stories of the country fellows or course mates in Dubai, many made their way to the Emirates, where they started to establish a business in the tourist sector, the car trade business, or they worked as shop owners or in the real estate sector. So there are other significant nodes in the mobile path of the students travelers I met, such as, for example, Moscow or Cairo, and which may be worth to examine, but in my today's paper I focus on Dubai only. So, in Dubai, their study projects not only turned into professional careers. Dubai as a global city also became a node of the students' transnational Muslim networks, and as such a desirable as well as a condemned place of economic, social, religion and other possibilities and limitations. The slide shows that in Dubai the economic and spiritual livelihoods of the student travelers merge very different travel modes or modes of travel. So this covers, for instance, migration, Hajj pilgrimage, refuge, emigration, what they call hijra, to looking for another place to live in a more Muslim-friendly place than secular Tajikistan, cross-border trade or business travel. So this is the overall background of my project or book project, and what interests me is first how the travel trajectories shape mobile subjectivities and inform emotional geographies that emerge from the ways the students experience and assess their multi-sided situatedness in and belonging to different places and communities in the Muslim or non-Muslim world, so this slide fits better. The second point that interests me is how these mobile subjectivities and what I call emotional geographies become part of a larger piety project, and how the students navigate their pious endeavors through various mobility regimes, both home and abroad. Yeah? So with mobility regimes, I mean secular politics and normativity, citizenship regimes, order regimes, social orders, hegemonic Islamic discourses, and so on. And the third point that interests me is how the often interrupted or multilinear study and work careers are reconstructed, represented, and displayed by the student travelers as a coherent story of pious self-fashioning and Muslim remaking. So, I did multi-sided fieldwork in both Tajikistan and the Emirates in between 2010 and 2014, and I tried to follow the people, their biographies, and changing ideas of concepts of Islam and Muslimness. So, starting from here, I would like to make three general statements in my today's paper that I would then hope to discuss with you further. The first statement is that many of the student travelers followed a religious reformism that is articulated in form of a strong emphasis on or reference on book knowledge and what I call the Quranic piety. And is all this religious reformism is also articulated in the production of Islamic lifestyles, both in close relation to pursuits of moral perfectioning or also to a purist Islam, what makes them very much adaptable, for instance, to Salafist ideas. And I mean a reformism that promotes the engagement in projects of self-making, that link religious ideals and ethic principles with economic strategies and social engagement. As I will argue, this religious reformism cannot be separated from the Dubai boom, which promotes the encounter with an urban Muslim cosmopolitanism. This cosmopolitanism roots in Dubai's history as a trans-regional trading hub and a global migrant destination that link Muslim networks across the Indian Ocean, the Middle East, and further to Eurasia. With focus on the old established Sunni Iranian and Afghan diaspora and Arab migrant communities in Dubai, as well as with focus on a new national Arab or Emirati elitism, I argue that Dubai's trans and multicultural urban environment simultaneously foster feelings of belonging to a rather deculturalized Islam and a supranational Ummah, and strengthen notions of Tajikness as a cultural identity. Consequently, the reform projects of the student travelers produce hybrid identities and a striking mobility within religion that juxtaposes political and academic representations of Central Asians studying Islam abroad as radicalized subjects spreading a foreign or Arabized Islam. Moreover, and this is my second argument, the much acclaimed so-called Arabization of Tajikistan's Islam through the study environment of institutions such as Cairo's Al-Azhar or universities in Saudi Arabia gives way to a Dubaization that integrates Arab, Persian, and also Russian or Soviet elements and produces a dynamic, what I called cosmopolitan Dubai Islam. In regard to the question of how much Central Asia is in the Gulf, and herewith I follow Neha Vora, who in her brilliant study on the Indian diaspora in Dubai scrutinizes the general academic reading of the Gulf as exclusively Middle Eastern. I will show that Tajiks in Dubai incorporate or embody this Muslim cosmopolitanism through the networks they are engaged in. At the same time, they actively shape Dubai's cosmopolitan Islam whilst pursuing their reform projects and producing urban and highly mobile Islamic lifestyles. And the third argument I want to make on the paper is that the cosmopolitan Dubai Islam is displayed by Dubai's Tajiks when they return home in the summer months to visit their families, or when they keep home their cross-border trade businesses running, or when they, for instance, return to Moscow to work. As I will show, it is through their lifestyles and particularly through fashionable women's Islamic dress, that the Students' Travelers Reformism materializes as a self-making project that merges right Islamic knowledge and travel experience and the habitus of cultural sophistication into notions of urbanity and a progressive modernity, which is perceived as rather Muslim than European, means Russian, or Western. I will now describe what I term as a cosmopolitan Dubai Islam, and I will show that there are different cosmopolitanisms that conflate in the Tajik reform projects under study. I followed Bruce Grant in his brilliant article on 1970s Baku cosmopolitanism and understand cosmopolitanism as a product of a particular social context rather than as the adoption of a distant normative European model. In the case of Dubai, we deal with a specific urban environment that produces these social contexts through everyday life, media, or material representations. Neha Fora, in her book Impossible Citizenship, speaks of two Dubais. The first is the new Dubai, which covers areas such as Dubai Marina, downtown Dubai, or Sheikh Zayed Road, and an area which is closely associated with the production of a global cosmopolitan futures, and which is called by Ahmed Khanna as the city of cooperation, where global business meets tourism and heritage for consumption development projects try to sell Arabia and display a new Emirati citizenship and an Emirati national history and Muslim identity, which is purified from cultural hybridity and Western modernity. The new Dubai's image of a hypermodern global city, future city, triggers elusive dreams, aspirations, and desires for social upward mobility. The old Dubai at the creek side includes the so-called migrant quarter close to Dubai Beira. It is an area shaped by the historically grown mercantilism and an Indian Ocean cosmopolitanism, rooting in the historical trading networks of the Indian, Afghan, Iranian, and other diaspora and migrant communities. In the official narrative of New Dubai, its old counterpart with the multinational, the multicultural migrants' lifestyle is constructed as a negative cosmopolitanism, which dilutes the purity of Emirati culture and Muslimness. So, it is in the old Dubai area where most of the Tajik students with which I met live and work, and where they integrate into transnational Muslim networks and Islamic discourses through Quran reading groups or study circles in neighborhood mosques, or through their dwelling in overcrowded migrant lodges. As I argue, this multinational, multi-ethnic, and culturally fluid framework of everyday Muslim encounters shapes the Tajik students' religious experiences in the Gulf, thereby enabling them to develop cosmopolitan forms of Islamic practice and identity. Here I agree with Ulf Hannertz, who defined cosmopolitanism as a capacity to adapt and interact with transnational and multicultural surroundings, as well to function successfully in a social, economic, and cultural way. However, cosmopolitanism is not only the celebration of cultural sophistication, it produces also boundaries and exclusions, which draw from a wide range of meaning-producing structures and experiences. The cosmopolitan environment in which many Tajiks in Dubai integrate is limited to a shared Sunni Muslim identity, which for instance excluded Shiite Azerbaijanis or Iranian Shiites, but embraces Arab migrants from Egypt and Syria. The cosmopolitan environment also bases on a shared Persian cultural tradition that embraces Sunni Iranians, Afghans, and even Baluch people, but exclude, for instance, Turkish-speaking Central Asians, such as Kyrgyz, Kazakhs, and even the Uzbeks from Tajikistan. It means Tajiks and Dubai would never do business with these people, yeah, or would never live with them or share a lodge with them. As a result, Dubai's cosmopolitanism is also an identity discourse, which simultaneously embraces a rather deculturalized Islam and notions of cultural and also Hanafi Tajik identity. Just to give you an example, the wives of former student travelers usually wear this Arab or Dubai-style garments. It means the black abaya and the niqab, a face veil, when visiting their families or kins at home. With their bodies, they thus display an Islamic elitism that combines expert knowledge with travel experience and a spiritual career they underwent abroad, and that demarcates them from the rather culturalized Tajik Muslim other. In Dubai, however, when these women invite their mosque-reading group friends from Afghanistan, Egypt or Iran, they display an authentic Tajikness through the meals they serve or the colorful traditional dress code they wear. The complexity of Dubai's cosmopolitan Islam, as it's materialized in the reform projects of Tajik student travelers, also entails a striking ambivalent relationship to Russia and Russia's lasting Soviet legacy in Tajikistan. At the one hand, Russia's influence as a center for oil production, military power and labor migrants is increasingly being replaced by a shift towards Dubai's narrative of a Muslim hypermodernity that empowers Tajik Muslims to emancipate from the Soviet and post-Soviet colonizers. At the other hand, the reform projects of Tajik students travelers are obviously promoted or supported by a global Dubai tourism that attracts, in particular, the new urban Russian middle class. In 2030 and 40, when I did my fieldwork in Dubai, many Tajiks worked as tourist guides or in the fur trade business, using their Russian language skills to contact rich tourists from Russia or Central Asia, Russian speaking. Yeah. At the same time, they utilized their Persian language skills to integrate into the tourist business sector, which is predominantly dominated by Iranians and Afghans. And they used their Arab language training in Cairo or elsewhere to cope with Dubai's policy, state officials, and to get a foothold into the Arab kafil system. This is the sponsorship system you need in order to establish a business in the Emirates. An excellent illustration of the Dubai's multi-layered cosmopolitanisms provide this advertisement of a Dubai travel agency in Dushanbe city. The placard combines pious sentiments with global middle and upper class family aspirations and produces an elitist Dubai image which is advertised in Russian language, a language that refreshes the old idea of Soviet internationalism and became a real practice and attitude or cultural sophistication in the urban centers of the Soviet Empire. So, to sum up, we cannot think about or talk about Dubai's cosmopolitanisms without considering the impact of today's Russia and its Soviet cultural policy. And this image is also a very smooth transition to my last point, what is called as religion branding. No, 2 minutes. And I would like to end up with some thoughts regarding the main question of the conference, how Central Asia integrates into the international scene through religion. And I will link the mobility path and religious reform projects of Tajiks in Dubai with the consumption or the commodification of religion and spirituality. Okay. The reformist lifestyles of Dubai Tajiks feed into a growing Islamic commodity culture in Tajikistan that fashionalizes Islamic clothing and turns the cosmopolitan Dubai Islam into a brand that enables consumers in Tajikistan to dream of, to feel that they belong to, or to identify with a specific Emirati or more general with the global modern and urban middle classness. In the course of the Dubai boom, the reformist style Arab abaya and face veil, niqab, underwent a transformation from a public religious symbol into a rather fashionalized sign commodity that conflates reformist piety with notions of urban modernity and social upward mobility, and that can be shopped nowadays in Dubai's city malls or urban markets. At the same time, female sellers in markets wear Dubai-style hijabs in order to advertise their products as modern and in Dubai quality. Moreover, they display a public piety a urban cultivatedness and cosmopolitanism that may ensure that the shop runs a proper and trustworthy business. Okay, thank you very much.